Help me, Trash Compactor listeners. You're my only hope. Hi, this is Roane, and we really can use your help. Want a chance to hear our next podcast segments before anyone else? Enjoy typing? Then we want you, yes, you, to volunteer to help us transcribe our episode each month. The Trash Compactor podcast comes to you thanks to our great guests, but also all the writing, recording, editing, and transcribing that goes on behind the scenes, not to mention our monthly artwork from MC. Right now, all of that work gets divided between me and MC. We've gotten great feedback from people who find the transcription really helpful, and we want to be able to continue to provide it on time with each episode. If you're interested in helping out or want more information on what's involved, drop us an email at thetrashcompactorpodcast@gmail.com or send us a message on Tumblr, trashcompactorpodcast.tumblr.com. No experience necessary, and we'll point you towards some useful tools that you can use for free. We hope to hear from you.
Into the garbage chute, fly boy!
This is a rebellion, isn't it?
I call it aggressive negotiations.
The garbage will do!
Hi, and welcome to the Trash Compactor podcast, a look at the Star Wars fandom from the female perspective. I'm MC, and with me is...
Roane?
Today we'll be talking about Star Wars Rebels, the Rebellion-era cartoon, currently airing its third season on Disney XD. But before we get into that, I'd like to discuss something else regarding the cartoons. And that's a theory that's been floating around the internet about Captain Rex, who was first introduced on the Clone Wars and is now appearing on Rebels. And that is that he is in Return of the Jedi.
I love this.
Now, I became aware of this theory going on YouTube, and I will be providing a link to two different videos that talk about it. One's from the Scoundrels Cantina, and the other one is from Star Wars History. But the basic premise is that there is a rebel soldier on Endor in Return of the Jedi who is bearded and older than any of the other soldiers, and the theory is that this is Rex, like 10 years after Rebels. So we wanted to have a little discussion about that and what we thought about it. For me, it's like, I'm so excited about this idea. I love joining the trilogies and the books and the cartoons all together.
Yes!
Yeah, even more than Luke and Han and Leia are going to be in the new trilogy. I want this entire universe to seem cohesive. Having Forrest Whitaker's character be from the Clone Wars. I haven't even finished watching all of the Clone Wars, and still that thrilled me to hear that. And I love Rex on Rebels, so the idea of him still being around in Return of the Jedi it makes me so fucking happy.
The best part about this to me, it's like, obviously, when they made Return of the Jedi, this was not remotely in anyone's mindset at all.
No, definitely not.
But I really would be curious, and I don't know, I have only seen one of the videos, I haven't seen the second one. I really would be curious if the team that designed Rex now did that deliberately, if they went back.
Yeah, I mean, that is the question. I mean, was this a plan, or was this something that was pointed out to them? First of all, let's address the character from Return of the Jedi. This is actually incredibly rare from a character from Star Wars, in that there is very little on him. Back in the days of the expanded universe, now known as Legends, they did backgrounds for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. Now, the character does have a name. His name is Nick Sant, or Gramps, and this is his entry from Wikipedia. And it is classified as Legends, so none of this is technically canon anymore. But honestly, it doesn't really it doesn't say anything. So Nick Sant, or Gramps, as he was affectionately known, was a member of the Rebel Alliance strike team sent to the forest moon of Endor. The oldest member of the team, Gramps was a survival expert. Sant was a leading member of a group of soldiers who, in the beginning of the Galactic Civil War, devised plans for Rebellion's guerrilla-like attacks and key targets in the Galactic Empire. He also helped assemble the Endor strike team. When an Ewok stole a speeder bike, 3 scout troopers followed, leaving one at the shield generator. The rebels captured the scout, and Nick Sant disguised himself by putting on the scout trooper armor. Unfortunately, he was later captured by the Imperials and was held hostage along with the other members of the strike team. That's it, and if that doesn't sound like Rex...
Oh my god, it so does. What I loved is especially the bit about him disguising himself as a stormtrooper.
I know, right?
You know, he does that all through Rebels.
Yes,
and
that's
I mean,
totally...
He was a clone, so I mean, he wore like the initial version of the stormtrooper armor.
Oh yeah,
and he was a clone trooper.
Yeah,
it does feel like they did it deliberately, like an homage to that character.
Mentioning that he came up with a lot of the attacks and the targets because he knew what to attack in the Empire, and it's like that's totally sounds like a Rex thing to do, like being, you know, like a real high up in the rebellion, being like one of the major attackers because he's been through a war before.
Right. Well, and this is even in Rebels. He points out, I think it's Rebels and not it is Rebels and not Clone Wars. He points out that, you know, they're trying to sneak in somewhere, and he knows all the lingo and all the shortcuts because he helped come up with them.
Yeah.
When he was before the Empire was the Empire, the Old Republic.
Yeah.
The whole focus on this Gramps character having guerrilla training and training others, that's totally what Rex does in Clone Wars. Speaking of the Rogue One tie-in, he is the one who trains Forrest Whitaker's character and his sister, trains them and their little gang of people to fight against the Separatists. So it had to have been deliberate on the part of Lucasfilm.
Well, Dave Filoni has actually spoken about this whole theory. Now, he doesn't address whether or not it was planned or not, but he did say, and I will link to this, it was posted on Slash Film. He said this during the finale of Season 2. I think the one thing I have really thought about is that I really do think that Rex is that guy on Endor. I really do. Why else is there a bearded old guy on Endor? Why? It makes no sense. If you don't want that to happen, do you know what that means? I'm going to make that happen. I'm getting like Palpatine. I'm getting power crazy. I mean, of course, some of that does sound... Some of that does sound a little tongue-in-cheek, but I think he seems, very keen on the idea. It doesn't say whether or not it was on purpose, or if somebody came up with this theory and he was just like, "Hey, I didn't think of that. Why didn't I think of that?" That's totally what happened, which happens a lot with creators.
I mean, I was going to say, any good creator, your answer is always, "Why, yes, I meant to do that. Thank you for noticing."
Yeah.
So I'm surprised he didn't do that, actually, because he kind of did it. He kind of does sound like, I didn't notice that, but that's a great idea, and so therefore it's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, it's a hell of a coincidence. If,
it really
say,
is.
for example, like, if say, for example, the character designer for Rex didn't look back at Return of the Jedi and go, that could be that guy. I know the other issue that I saw addressed was the question of aging, because it has been about 10 years.
Yeah, and the clones do have the sped up aging. Now, I think it's about 10 years, so meaning for Rex, that's about 20 years. And he appears to be about 50 in Rebels, so that would put him about 70 in Return of the Jedi, just based on physical appearance. Now, I guess, I mean, I'm not very good at judging aging, so... I mean, he does, the guy in Return of the Jedi does look younger than 70, but one, Rex keeps himself in just peak physical condition for a clone.
Right.
Or for an aging clone. And two, Rex, when he first appeared in Rebels, he had just been with a bunch of other clones, and they were kind of just keeping out of everything. And it was only once he finally got with the rebellion that he was doing anything other than just kind of chilling out, waiting at the clock. So I think now that he's with the rebellion, maybe they'll, really try to, find medical procedures that could slow down his aging process. And I mean, it's the Star Wars universe. Come on, if we can, build, prosthetic limbs that work perfectly all over the place, and back to tanks, and even carbon freezing. There's a shit ton of stuff that they could do to try to slow down the aging process. That. Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely ways around that. It's very important to me that this guy actually be Rex. Now, I don't know if they'll want to retcon it so that everybody called him Rex, because, I mean, obviously this whole Nick Sant and Gramps stuff, based on what the sources from Wikipedia, it's only the customizable card game that any of this information has come out. So it's very easily ignored. But, I mean, if somebody did want to include this in, I mean, come on, people are going to start calling him Gramps, because I'm really surprised people aren't calling him Gramps yet on Rebels.
That's because he would kick anyone's ass who called him Gramps. Are you kidding me?
That is true. Maybe Han came up with it, because Han would just give no fucks.
Oh my god, he totally did. I can't make it.
But if we want to work the whole Nick Sant thing in there, it could be that maybe Rex wanted to take on, a civilian identity, because there is kind of, this backlash against clones, so maybe he's trying to hide the fact that he's a clone.
That could be.
Yeah. But I think that's all, incredibly extraneous. If somebody decides they want to explain it, if they want to do, a book that is all about Rex, which, now that I'm saying that, I really want that to happen. Well, come on. We've got a book on Tarkin. We've got a book that's going to be coming out on Thrawn. Why don't we get Rex?
There's also the Ahsoka book.
There's the Ahsoka book, too, yeah. So let's get one on Rex, and, not just have it be on Rebellion-era stuff. Let's go, right from the Clone Wars all the way up. Just all about Rex. And maybe we could do it as Captain's Logs type thing. And I know that's the wrong fandom, but...
Well, same idea. But, we're not going to get that until after Rebels, because doing that would then reveal what happens to the Rebels characters, which we don't
That's
know.
very true, and I think this is only part of the quote from Dave Filoni, and I think that he actually mentioned that he's not going to confirm anything one way or the other, because that might give away spoilers for Rebels.
Right. We can't... He can't make us worry that Rex is going to die if we're all no, he's totally in Return of the Jedi.
So I think we're both in agreement. Rex, totally the guy in Return of the Jedi. It's just a matter of time before we figure out how that happens. And we're both looking forward to that.
Now I totally want fanfic where he talks to Luke.
Oh, God.
Everything he saw and
fighting
alongside his dad and his mom, and that needs to happen.
So many feels. Yeah, no, I want that so much. Yeah, we will be talking more about Rebels in a couple of minutes, but before we get to that, let's get to the news. This is MC, and this is what's happening in the galaxy. Hello, what do we have here? StarWars.com has announced Donald Glover will be playing Lando Calrissian in the 2018 Han Solo movie. Glover is best known for starring in Community, Atlanta, and his appearance in the Academy Award-nominated The Martian. Glover's casting shows that if the internet wants something hard enough, sometimes it'll happen. Hollywood Reporter-writer Boris Kitt said on Twitter that the movie will feature the infamous Sabak game in which Han won the Millennium Falcon from Lando. On the red carpet for his upcoming film, American Pastoral, Ewan McGregor spoke about the possibility of a movie about Obi-Wan Kenobi set between The Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. McGregor stressed no one has approached him and there are no plans, but he was enthusiastic, stating, "It would be fun to film the story now that I'm older. I'd be the right age. I'm 45. Alec Guinness was what, 60? I could do 2 of them. Foodle's production, previously reported as pleading guilty to 2 counts of health and safety violations, has been fined £1.6 billion for negligence, which led to Harrison Ford's broken leg on the set of The Force Awakens. In an interview with Complex, director Joss Whedon spoke about his desire to direct a Star Wars standalone. Whedon, the director of The Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron, said, "I was like, I don't want to make a Star Wars movie. Like, goddamn it, why? But I saw the trailer for Rogue One, a Star Wars story, a while ago, and I was like, I want to do that. To make a Star Wars movie and not be wed to the bigger picture." A new book dedicated to the art of Ralph McQuarrie was released on September 27th. Star Wars, Ralph McQuarrie reproduces McQuarrie's concept art from A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, including rarely seen drawings. The 2-volume set has over 2,000 illustrations and retails for $250. An exhibition of Star Wars props, costumes, and models will be on display at London's The O2. Star Wars Identities will allow visitors to take an interactive journey and will develop a personal Star Wars character. The exhibition runs from November 18th to September 2017. That's all for the Trash Compactor news. Links to more information on the stories we've reported on can be found in the show notes. If you have any tips, email us at thetrashcompactorpodcast@gmail.com. Hi, welcome to the Trash Compactor Reacts, where we talk about news in the Star Wars universe in depth. So, the collector's edition of The Force Awakens is coming out on November 15th, but USA Today has reported on a bit of commentary from J.J. Abrams talking about Kylo Ren. Just to quote what was said in the commentary, people always ask Abrams if the youngster was playing with his father's emotions and planned to murder him the whole time. But Abrams revealed that Kylo Ren in this moment is actually being convinced to walk away from this. Abrams also thinks, as Han says, Ben knows that Supreme Leader Snoke is using him, but can't accept it. Deep down, he's gone too far. So we want to talk about Kylo Ren, and is he going to be redeemed? And does this tell us if he's going to be redeemed? And I have with me April.
Hello.
So you obviously have a lot of feelings about Kylo Ren.
I do.
I think we've all talked about Kylo Ren and his possibility for redemption.
Yes.
And this just really confirmed it to me.
Yeah.
It seemed really obvious that they were setting up Kylo for redemption, but there was a lot of blowback online where it's like, no, he's gone too far, and I think a lot of that was for people who loved Han Solo. They didn't want to admit that his murderer could be redeemed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I think that the thing that I found the most interesting, because, whenever I first watched it, I really did feel that he was conflicted the entire time. Like, yes, perhaps he did lure him out onto the bridge to make it more easy to fulfill this act, because I think that, first of all, if you back up, there are people who are just like, who don't believe at all that he's even conflicted. And I'm like, well, we have an entire scene where he's the only person in the room where he specifically talks about being conflicted. So there's no way we can say that he's lying about that. And then in that scene, he also notes that his master can sense this, so he's got to prove himself. So I think that there was this thing where he lures him out there for the purpose of trying to prove himself. I don't think that he walked right past Han and did not sense him there. I think he did and was just like, okay, we're going to do this out on this bridge. Maybe it was a drama queen in him. Maybe it was just the most convenient place. But, then you have this moment when Han does get close to him where he backs up physically and his facial expression changes, and it's like, okay, right here I think is a beat change where you've got this thing where, he's obviously not physically afraid of Han. He's probably not had a reason to be physically afraid of Han since he was like 14 or so. But I imagine it's like, okay, we have love and light coming at him, and that's terrifying to him. And then that would be sort of the catalyst that would start him thinking that maybe it is okay to go home. Though, and the sad part is that he thinks that it's too late, that he has already gone too far, with all the things that he's done, and then what he does later is supposed to seal it. So yeah, I think that, you know, there's, with complex characters, there's a possibility for, like, you know, yes, he intended to kill his father, but yes, he was conflicted. Those two things can exist in the same universe with a character that's complex.
Yeah, I think it's obviously been a couple of years since these two characters have seen each other. Like, it was pretty well established that years had passed, that Han had been gone. So I think, like, the whole, oh, I'm going to kill my father was very much in the abstract. Yeah. Like, it's very easy to say that when you're not in front of a person. But then he sees his dad, and it's like, I don't know if I'm able to go through with this. And Han is trying to tell him all of this stuff about how it's not too late for him to come back. And this is all things that, you know, Ben, and I'm going to call him Ben because, you know, Kylo Ren is kind of like, it's literally a mask he puts on. It's not too late for him to come back. And Ben is fighting with it, and he's just not sure. And it's one moment where and unfortunately, it's a big moment that he can't take back, and that he turns that lightsaber on. But that doesn't mean that he can't come back from that eventually. Yeah. And I have seen just a lot of people talking about, you know, how Kylo Ren will be able to come back from that sort of thing. You know, does it mean that he has to die? Personally, I'm on the side of no, because then it's just a repeat of Anakin's story. And while I do think that the fact that the movies mirror each other does play into the whole he will be redeemed, I think they need to change some aspects of it, and redemption equaling death is not something I'm really keen on them repeating. Yeah. It's not interesting. It's if you've done that kind of thing once, it was beautiful, it was perfect that way. But also, like with Anakin, he was handing the reins over to his son. Yeah. And with Kylo Ren, Ben is the last scion of the Solo and Skywalker family, as far as we know. And so we can't kill him off just to redeem him. I think he needs to carry on.
Yeah, in some way. And, you know, there's always the talk, and this is like, could be a whole 20, 30 minutes just talking about the differences between redemption and atonement and forgiveness. Because a lot of people think that, oh, redemption means that everybody's just going to forget what happened. It's like, no. And that's part of what makes things interesting is, you know, a character can feel sorry for what they did, can vow to not do those things again and try to atone for them. And that doesn't mean that anybody has to forgive them. And then that creates further conflict and further interest rather than just taking the easy road of, we don't know what to do with this character once they are redeemed, so let's just have him die nobly and leave his mother without a son or a husband. So, yeah, I think it's very interesting because I think there's so many ways it could go. I don't want to definitely say anything ever, you know, because the idea of him doubling down and becoming supreme leader himself is a possibility. Yeah. You know, it's still always a possibility that he could die and that he could die unredeemed. But, you know, just everything that I know as far as storytelling, as far as this kind of storytelling, just tells me, yes, there's going to be some form of redemption here. And I think that we can't really, until we know more about what happened, it's so hard to say what's going to happen in the future. Because we just don't really know what the hell happened for him to turn.
I personally am very much on the side of, I would like to see Kylo Ren redeem himself, or at least start to redeem himself in the next movie, or at the very, very beginning of the third one. Because I would like to see a journey, and saying that, you know, people are not going to forget things. I would like to see, like, actual physical, like, proof of Finn and Poe and these people not trusting him and being forced to work with him. That's compelling to me.
And something that Pablo Hidalgo, I think, brought up on Twitter, or somebody asked him, was how many people even know that Kylo Ren has been Solo, like, in the galaxy.
Oh, really?
And he sort of implied, I think, that it's not well known. Like, because he was off with Luke, who also disappeared, so it's not like his disappearance raises that many eyebrows. Like, they disappeared together.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm like, well, that brings a whole other, like, aspect into what's going on.
I don't get the impression that Kylo Ren goes around maskless a lot. No. Because he wants to have that Darth Vader mystique.
Yeah, because he's got a puppy dog face. So, like, Who's going to be afraid of that guy?
Now, we do know that J.J. Abrams doesn't really have any input on the episode 8, or presumably episode 9. He's left that mostly up to Rian Johnson, and I can't remember who's doing the 9th one. But yeah, so, I mean, this might just be what J.J. Abrams believes, and the other filmmakers are going to be like, yeah, that's a nice theory, but I'm going to go this way. Which is, I think, one of the problems with doing a project like this and having a bunch of different directors on it. You do have a bunch of different viewpoints, which, you know, say what you will about the prequels. They had one vision. Yeah. It was George Lucas's vision, and it did stay pretty consistent throughout.
But wouldn't that be kind of what the storytelling team is for, though?
That is true. You do have the storytelling team. We have, like, Kathleen Kennedy, who's pretty much, you know, keeping a lockdown on things. So, but we don't know. So it'll be interesting to see how things really shake out. But yeah, I mean, this for me, it's just like, well, somebody's talking about Kylo Ren's redemption.
Yeah, and I mean, my dream is still always to see Rey and Kylo and Finn take down Snoke together. Like, that's my dream sequence.
Oh, yeah.
Like, all of them with lightsabers, too. It's just, you know, if it happens, I will just be the happiest person in the world.
All 3 of them attacking Snoke directly, and then to parallel with Return of the Jedi, you have Poe doing some sort of Death Star run, because Poe's got to be there, too, doing something. He could be piloting the Falcon for all we know. With Lando. Because, damn it, when's Lando gonna come back? Okay, so just to remind people, the 3D Collector's Edition of The Force Awakens, it comes out internationally on October 31st. So by the time people overseas are hearing this, you'll be able to get it, and probably will have it already. But in the US, it arrives on November 15th. So if you don't have Star Wars The Force Awakens yet, go and buy it. For now, we're going to go on to the spotlight. Friendship has driven this Mandalorian from Imperial Cadet to Bounty Hunter to Rebel. Ketsu Onyo was born on Mandalore and grew up under the Empire. She and her best friend Sabine Wren studied at the Imperial Academy before escaping together. Along the way, Ketsu left Sabine for dead and joined the Black Sun Syndicate. Years later, Ketsu ran into Sabine, now a member of the Rebel Alliance, on Gorel. The former friends were at odds, both needing to retrieve a Gonk droid with vital information for the rebellion. Ketsu offered to split the bounty with Sabine, but was rebuffed due to Sabine's loyalty to the rebellion. When the Empire caught up with them, Ketsu assisted in the escape. Her actions led Hera Syndulla to offer her a place in the rebellion. Ketsu turned down the offer, but was told she would always be welcome. Ketsu did reconsider the offer, joining the rebellion only a few months later. She would assist in finding a location for a rebel base and rescued the crew of the Ghost from an attack by Imperial forces. Back on the same side, Ketsu and Sabine renewed their friendship. Welcome to our main segment this episode. While we've touched upon Rebels in the past, this is the first time we've delved deep into it. I'm MC, and I'm here with...
Roane.
And Luthe, who you might know on Tumblr as Persian-slipper, which is more my Sherlock stuff than my Star Wars stuff. So if you're looking for me on AO3 for Star Wars, it's under Luthe.
Yay!
Yay! Cool. We are really glad to have you. So I think the first thing, what do you think is really the premise of Rebels? Like, how would you describe Rebels to someone who hasn't seen it? Now, the way I've been describing it is I feel like it's Firefly, but in reverse. And that's exactly how I explained it to my brother, and he kind of got what I was talking about, where it's kind of, you got this ragtag team that's, you know, on this ship, and they start off doing kind of sketchy things, but then you realize it's part of, like, this bigger, you know, larger war effort that's going on, so...
I love the Firefly connection, because I honestly, why I didn't make that connection, I don't know, but I didn't. I basically have described it to people as watching the beginning of the rebellion, just because we do. I mean, season 1 is all about how the Ghost Crew hooks into the rebellion and how the rebellion is getting it started. Kind of starts happening in season 2, and so it's kind of the beginning of the rebellion for me.
Yeah, that really does sum it up, is that it's where the rebellion starts, but it's also basically one cell of the rebellion, and then you see how it hooks up to the main rebellion, because you can't just say it's the whole thing, because you see, Leia, it's
Right.
how all the little pieces come together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things I really love about the show is getting to see those pieces fit together.
One thing I only realized, like, last night was Rebels serves as a bridge between the prequels and the original trilogy, and the main character is named Bridger.
Oh. No. No, that was not an intentional thing.
I don't know if it was intentional, but it just, like, kind of hit me where it's like, it could be a thing, because that's not out of the realm of, like, possibility, but
maybe.
Yeah. Anyways, that brings us to talking about the characters who are on the show, because obviously they kind of form like each episode kind of focuses on one character, and you get something that from their past that comes back, or some adventure that they have to go on. So there is a main character on the show, being that it's a kid's show. It is the younger character of Ezra Bridger. And I think he starts the show at, 14?
15.
He's 15 when the show starts? Yeah. And he is a young thief, and it turns out that he has force potential, and is taken on as a Padawan. But we'll talk about Kanan in a minute, but to start off with, let's talk about Ezra. And how we feel about Ezra.
I'm so worried about Ezra. So he's 15 in season 1, 16 in season 2, and now he's 17. And he's changed a lot. And
He has.
That's one of the things that I really love about him is the character development that we've seen in him, especially having gone back recently and watched season 1. He really does start out as this bratty kid. Gosh, I wonder who that sounds like. Who is basically doing this whole force thing because someone says, "Hey, you could do this whole force thing." Which, golly, who else does that sound like?
In the first episode, he's introduced, and he's basically Aladdin from the Aladdin.
He really is. He's like stealing to stay alive. He's been on his own for 8 years. His parents were taken by the Empire, because we find out later that they were basically fomenting rebellion by their radio broadcasts, speaking out against the Empire. So he, as a kid, starting from the age of 7, was on his own on Lothal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, any Jedi Force-related characters, there's always that worry with them where it's just like, oh my god, but Luke was supposed to be the last of the Jedi. But I definitely see something very interesting developing with Ezra. I mean, you get it a little bit with Kanan, but it's mostly with Ezra and Ahsoka too, where they're not Jedi in the traditional sense. They are Force, followers, but they're kind of starting to form their own religion, and maybe not religion, but their own version of using the Force. And I don't know how that's gonna go.
Well, that's what happens when your training gets cut off in the middle and you don't get the full Jedi indoctrination thing going.
Very true. There's also how Kanan feels about the whole vow of celibacy that Jedi have to take.
Now, it's not a vow of celibacy. It's not having attachments, which clearly he's not doing well with that either. But
yeah,
well,
I mean,
as we see, attachments wind up being the important part. So
yeah. So the Jedi totally had it wrong.
I mean, it's really interesting that Ezra and Kanan do have this, master Padawan dynamic going on. But Kanan hasn't just bothered at all with any of those, you don't need, you can't have attachments. He's just kind of tossed that away. which obviously is the healthier way of doing it, but that's from the outside perspective where we're seeing that. But certainly we have had, with Anakin, these Force users who are willing to do things that they are not with their Jedi training. So I'm really worried about Ezra too.
I think that's the point of season 3, is that we're supposed to be worried about Ezra.
Yeah.
Because, he's the first episode of season 3 pretty much left me going, Ezra, no, what are you doing? It seems to have gotten a little better.
I was definitely getting the Anakin vibe of, can I just smack you over the head for being dumb now?
But that's the thing, because unlike Anakin, Ezra does have people. Yeah, Ezra has people who will smack him over the head. I think Kanan and Hera both are keeping an eye on him now.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is very different with Ezra, because rather than just being in the Jedi Order and only having his master to really guide him, he's got a family. The Ghost Crew is a family altogether, and certainly Kanan, even if he is holding on to some of the Jedi beliefs, everybody else, they don't really give a shit about what's going on with the Jedi. It's just like, no, Ezra, you can't do this. We're going to do things rationally. I don't care what the Jedi did.
Well, the other thing is, Anakin did have Padme, but she was kind of more on the enabler side.
We have Kanan Jarrus, also known as Caleb Doom, and he was the Padawan of Depa Bilba during the Clone Wars, and is one of the few who has survived Order 66, and has now,
by the way, is in the Kanan comic, and that is the most heartbreaking story ever.
I haven't gotten the chance to read the comics yet.
Roane,
it's so heartbreaking. What?
Remember, Star Wars is pain. Anyone who tells you otherwise is Disney trying to sell you something.
Yeah, I know. But basically, it kind of comes out in Rebels that when Order 66 happened, he was on a mission with his master, and as she was being cut down, she told him to run, and he did, and he, for years, I think pretty much until we saw him come to grips with it in Rebels, felt that he had betrayed her in some way for doing what she told him to do.
Mm-hmm. The one thing I found really shocking is when I was on Wikipedia looking up about Kanan, is just how young he is. Like, considering he's supposed to be a Clone War veteran, like, he was like a kid. Like,
yeah,
that really shows how the Jedi were, like, really desperate during the Clone Wars.
That's the thing about the Clone Wars. It was basically child soldiers the whole time, and this is...
Yeah.
Why I have issues with people getting mad at Anakin, because it's like, dude, he had PTSD when he was like 19.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously. Because, I mean, if you look at the comic, Kanan was maybe 13 or 14 when Order 66 happened. So, yeah, he was just a kid.
Yeah, no, I think it was 13 because that was, I think, the minimum age that they were starting to send Padawans out into the field.
But Kanan also, like with Ezra, I am worried about him every second. Not for different reasons, because Ezra, I think, is, I'm worried about him, giving in to some very bad things. But Kanan, it's always the, idea of how do we, explain Kanan when Luke is supposed to be the last of the Jedi? Is something going to happen to Kanan between now and Return of the Jedi? Please don't let that happen. I need Kanan and Hera to, go off to, a quiet corner of the galaxy and have cute little half Twi'lek, half Jedi babies.
Well, I think when you say Last of the Jedi, it doesn't necessarily have to be that, I think it's as far as Obi-Wan knows, so it could be that they're still alive. It just, Obi-Wan didn't know that there was other ones, or when you say Last of the Jedi, you can say Last of the Jedi who's actually, gotten the complete training versus, yeah, you were half trained and now you're going off and doing your own Force thing.
Well, here's the thing. My problem is with that is that Yoda shows up in Rebels several times, and he acknowledges that Kanan is a Jedi. In fact, we have the scene in, I forget which episode, where he's actually formally granted the title of Jedi Knight. So he's a Jedi, and Yoda is also one of the people who told Luke. He says, "When gone am I, the last of the Jedi you will be." So I can. So hang on. So I can buy Ezra still being out there if he like doesn't formally become a Jedi. I can buy Ahsoka still being out there since she left the Jedi. Like, okay, I'm good with that. But I just don't know if there's any way to hand wave, unless we want to say, well, he used to be a Jedi, he's not now, and he left.
Okay. I will counter with Darth Vader betrayed and murdered your father.
Yeah, that's true. You guys are liars.
A certain point of view can get us past anything.
They were really pretty brilliant to introduce that, because for continuity's sake, they can just be like, well, from a certain point of view, it's true.
And of course, we will talk later about some things that have been suggested for later on in the series, but
You promised you wouldn't squeal too loud.
I promised I would try.
But yeah, I adore Kanan. He is probably like one of my favorite Jedi characters, just because he is so unlike a real Jedi.
Somebody on my Tumblr dash calls him the Cowboy Jedi. Like
He is.
And yeah, I have a horrible, I needed another crush on another Jedi, but I have a horrible crush on Kanan, even though he's a cartoon. It's very sad.
So.
There's lovely fan art of him. That's all I'm going to say. Oh my God. And the comic is total fan service in a few places. The man busts out of a Bacta tank, shirtless with his hair flying everywhere. It's beautiful.
Okay, so obviously this season on Rebels, things have gone really badly for Kanan, in that at the end of last season he was blinded, and which that's kind of the biggest thing that has impacted his character. That he was going along and he was pretty steady for I'd say seasons 1 and 2, where it's just like, Ezra, I'm going to teach you how to use the Force, and now all of a sudden they've thrown this thing in for him where he needs to kind of relearn everything himself, where he needs to, kind of come to terms with the world not being able to see. And of course, the blind warrior, it's not a new concept, but
no, I mean, we're seeing it in Rogue One. So
I was going to say.
Oh, and hey, actually, this is now bringing me back to Last of the Jedi, because it could be that he goes and embraces this new way of seeing the Force, and therefore, he no longer counts as a Jedi and instead is, whatever kind of Force user. And so therefore, oh yeah, you're not actually counting in our list of Jedi.
Mm-hmm. That could be.
So we'll move on to the next character, and that's Hera Syndulla, who I love Hera so much. She is, I think Hera is my favorite character. I mean, she's not quite as visible on the show as Ezra and Kanan. They are because the show is kind of geared towards young kids, in particular young boys, because they do like to get the young boy dollars, or the dollars of their parents. So the level-headed captain of the ship doesn't get all of that much attention. But I think that's one of the reasons why I love her, is because Hera's such a freaking grown-up.
Yeah, I sometimes think Hera is the only grown-up.
Yeah, no, she really is. She is the unquestioned captain of the Ghost. That is her ship, and everybody who's on the ship must listen to her. I think that's awesome. She's also one of the first Twi'leks we've had in Star Wars that has not had her sexuality exploited at all. Well, I mean, female Twi'leks. The males, whatever they...
Well, yeah, because the males aren't pretty. One thing I really love is they played with that in the first episode that Lando Calrissian was on.
Yes.
Where he basically faked everyone out to sell her, quote unquote, to the guy they were trying to swindle. And it was unsettling to see her fall into that role. I was like,
Yeah.
no. But then of course she kicked the guy's ass about 30 seconds later. But it was interesting to see her play with the preconceptions that everyone has about her species.
Yeah.
I thought that was it was unsettling, but also really clever of her to know what they would expect and to give it to them before she, kicked their ass.
Yeah.
Now, I'm totally blanking on the name, but Gina Torres' character on Firefly. That is who Hera reminds me of.
Zoe. Yeah,
Zoe,
that's
yes.
exactly who I was going to say. Yeah. Hera is basically Zoe from Firefly. She is a kick-ass, just no-nonsense woman who also has the soft side with this relationship with her and Kanan.
I would actually say she's like a combination of like Zoe and maybe Inara. Just because she does have, I know a lot of people like to call her Space Mom, which I'm but she is very maternal. I mean, these, especially to Sabine and Ezra. There are a lot of scenes where she's just sitting down with them and talking to them. And she and Sabine had to work through some trust issues while, Sabine was like, why aren't you telling me anything? And she's like, I can't. You just have to trust me.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have taken in all of these kids. They were, because, I mean, Sabine was 16 when the show started, and she'd obviously been with them for a while.
Yeah. There even is actually a line near the end of season 1 where they're getting ready to go on a mission, and she tells all of them, make mom and dad proud, which obviously refers to her and Kanan.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing with Sabine is that she came from a Mandalorian clan, so she's already got that sort of, I don't know, family thing going, so we don't know exactly how she got from Mandalore to Imperial Academy to Rebel, which will be interesting. And then you have to remember with Hera, she started off, very young during the Clone Wars on Ryloth, and her dad was the leader, so it's like, what exactly did she go through before she had a falling out and left the planet? So I think she sees a lot of these issues herself in the kids, and so that's why she tries to be Space Mom.
Yeah, well, I mean, Hera also obviously really wanted to get away from Ryloth because we hear all of the Twi'leks speaking, and they all speak with French accents. And sometimes when she speaks, and she's getting emotional or whatever, or she's trying to hide herself, she uses the French accents. That's obviously her natural one, but
Which
she
is
made a
just, they talked to the actress about that, and that is just brilliant on their part. That when she gets emotional and she's talking to her father, she falls back into that accent.
Yeah,
that is. My family is all from Kentucky, and if I'm talking to them and I'm getting emotional about something, I start sounding exactly like them.
They have not really talked about just how horrible it really is for Twi'leks. They've touched on it, and certainly there's a rebellion going on there, but the slave trade of the Twi'leks is just freaking rampant. I mean, why do you think that Jabba the Hutt always has a Twi'lek with him? That's because Ryloth is right next to Tatooine, but because the people there are being sold into slavery just all the time. And maybe it's a bit too deep for a kid's show. Maybe that's not why they're not doing it.
Yeah, that's probably a little too much.
Yeah, but maybe they can come out with another book.
Or fanfic. Fanfic can go there.
The next thing to talk about is just an overview of seasons 1 and 2.
I'm really curious. If they have a specific plan for the show is going to run this many seasons and no farther, because I mean they have set themselves a time limit unless this is going to go after A New Hope, which I mean I guess it could. I mean
it could, yeah.
But yeah, with the first season is all about connecting to the bigger rebellion. the second season is all about starting to work with the bigger rebellion and how that affects the crew and how, Ezra and Kanan are viewed within that bigger rebellion, which again raises a lot of continuity questions of, all these rebellion people who know that there's a Jedi with a Padawan.
Yeah.
And I continuity, whatever. So I think in season 3, we are going to start seeing like the real start of the war.
Yeah.
With it happening.
Yeah, certainly we've started to get into it with more competent. We've introduced Grand Admiral Thrawn, who is just. He's only appeared in 2 episodes, but he's already kicked the ass of every single bad guy that has appeared on the show, where he's like, yeah, I know what I'm doing, and here's everything you're doing wrong, and I'm going to do it right. And suddenly the threat level seems just so elevated compared to what we've seen before.
I think with the villains we've seen in the past, like with the Inquisitors, who were great, they were scary, but every villain that we've seen on the show so far has some sort of emotional weakness.
Yeah.
That gets played to, and we have not seen any sign of that in Thrawn yet. Mm-hmm. And I don't know enough about the character to know if there is one.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, in the Heritage of the Empire books, Thrawn's downfall comes at the hands of characters that are definitely not going to be appearing in Rebels. So I don't know exactly what they're going to do to get him out of there, especially since we know that he doesn't exist for, the actual movies. So are they going to kill him off? Are they going to exile him like he was in the books? Is there something else going to go on? There's, it's a lot trickier because you can't predict based on what used to be going on.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, you could really piss off his fans and just say, oh, by the way, he was on the Death Star.
No, because if he were on the Death Star, it would have actually, not have had a exhaust port. There would have been no screw-ups.
Yeah, very true.
He would have terminated Leia right off. There wouldn't have been any of this. Let's keep her in the holding cell. Nope. You are no longer useful to us. Boom.
That's true. Roane, you mentioned the Inquisitors, which is something we haven't really talked about. I was thinking about just all of the Inquisitors versus like the whole idea of the Sith, and for some reason they really love pushing the idea of there's only master and apprentice. But then we have all of this Inquisitor stuff. Basically, that Rebels has been giving like a really interesting twist on like the Force wielder mythology, because they did kind of give the impression that after Order 66, like Force users just disappeared other than Darth Vader and I guess the Emperor, but nobody really kind of acknowledged that the Emperor could use the Force. But here we see that there's actually, a whole team of people that like it extinguishes Force users, which makes sense because, of course, to fight Force users, you would have to have other Force users.
Yeah, and in Rebels, we have seen a lot of quote-unquote rogue Force users, or I don't know, like third-party Force users. Because we've got the Inquisitors, who are obviously on the dark side. We've got Maul, who also obviously is on the dark side. And we've got, now with season 3, we've got the Bendu, who is his own thing unto himself.
The Bendu, I love the Bendu.
I know, he's great.
Well, no. The reason I love the Bendu is because it is a direct callback to the very first, like, really rough drafts that George Lucas came up with back when he was referring to the Forces, the Bogdan and the Ashla, and the Bendu was in the middle, and that whole thing is a direct callback, so...
Mm.
And they're doing a lot of that. They're doing a lot of calling back to the original old mythology, which is fun.
Obviously, the season is underway right now. We're up to episode 5 or 6.
5.
5?
Yep.
So the first episode, we introduced Grand Admiral Thrawn and introduced Ezra, being a little dumbass trying to accessing the Sith holocron, and Kanan coming to grips with being blind. Then we had Sabine going and collecting the one and only Wedge Antilles, along
Don't
with
forget Hobby. She collected
and Hobby.
Okay. Now here's where I have to do my thing. I'm sorry, Luthe. I have to do this because in Rebels Recon, which is, I don't know if anyone else watches this, it's kind of the little about extra show that they do.
We'll include a link in the show notes.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's short.
Recon.
The episodes are like 7 to 10 minutes, and they're really fun. But in Rebels Recon for the Antilles extraction, they talked about when they first started writing the episode, it wasn't going to be Wedge, it was going to be Big Starklighter. Which I screamed mightily and loudly because what could have been. And the reason that they were going to go there is because a lot of Sabine's artwork includes that checkerboard pattern that you see on Biggs' helmet.
Oh.
And so I think they were going to ship it. I think that was like the initial plan, which I would have dealt with. But yeah, so initially it was not going to be Wedge, it was going to be Biggs. And I don't know what made them change their mind, but I'm heartbroken, frankly. I'm
going to bet it's because they probably had another idea about what they want to do with Biggs.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that too. So this season, it has been, it's just been fun watching them bring in all these, like one of the fun things about the show in general is that they keep bringing in all these characters that we know. Like we've seen Bail Organa, we've seen
I have a
Calrissian.
list.
Lando.
It's a fun list.
And Hondo. Oh my God, Hondo.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh God, Hondo.
Yeah, just for characters that are from the movies, we have Bail, we have R2-D2 and C-3PO, Princess Leia, Wedge, Hobby, Lando, Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Maul. And for some of them, they actually brought back the original actors. For James Earl Jones, Anthony Daniels, Billy D. Williams, and Frank Oz. These are all people who came back to portray their character on the show. And, a lot of I got to admit, for the droids, I was a little like, this is kind of random that, they should suddenly have R2-D2 and C-3PO there.
They were on a mission.
That is true. But I think part of it was because it was like the third episode or something, so it just seemed a little early to pull out the R2 and C-3PO card. But Yoda has only appeared in Visions, and Obi-Wan has been from the holocron, if I recall correctly. Yeah. I don't think they've ever shown a vision of Obi-Wan yet. But Darth Maul is Darth Maul is there.
He's gonna be another big factor this season. Right.
Yes.
The second episode, we need to talk about that second episode.
Yes, we need to.
We need to talk about the vision that Ezra and Maul seem to have shared with each other.
Okay, well, that actually moves very well into our final question, which is, where do you think or want the show should go from here? And Roane, do you want to start?
Well, honestly, from the moment that Leia showed up in season 2, and knowing that we had already seen Lando, and we'd already seen Bail and all these other characters that we just talked about, I was like, okay, so when is the Ghost Crew going to go to Tatooine? Because now they have to. There is no option. And episode 2 of season 3, they teased it because Maul and Ezra were sharing their vision as they opened the 2 holocrons together. And, obviously Maul sees somebody he's been looking for that he wants revenge on. And from the Clone Wars, we know that someone he's got a huge grudge against is Obi-Wan Kenobi, who is, guess where? Tatooine. And just in case you missed that point, Ezra drives it home even further by musing that he's seeing twin sons. Mm-hmm. At which point I started screaming at the screen.
Well, I mean, of course, also, like, Ezra's not sure whether or not he's seeing his own question or if he's seeing the answer to Maul's question. Because
Right,
Maul's
but the
question
thing is-
obviously... the thing is that Ezra's question is, how do we defeat the Sith?
Right, so the answer to both of their questions is on Tatooine.
Is on Tatooine. Yeah.
So I'm expecting that the season finale is going to wind up with them going to Tatooine. And I
Of
am
course.
so freaking excited, I can't even tell you.
Yeah, I do agree. I think that it's going to end up on Tatooine. I think it's going to lean heavily upon Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
I think we'll glimpse Luke, but Obi-Wan's going to shut down any, like, maybe the Ghost crew will find out, that Luke is, a potential Jedi, but Obi-Wan's going to shut that shit down, because he's like, no, he's not ready, can't do this yet.
Yeah, I think if they hear the last name Skywalker, that will be the end of that. So there's going to be a lot of nope, that kid does not exist, we know nothing.
Yeah.
I think if we get anything, it definitely won't be the same sort of thing we got with Leia, where,
There's interaction.
Right. Well, okay, let me tell you what I would love. And this won't happen, but, let me tell you what I would love to see. I can see, for example, the show opening where they're in some sort of scrap on Tatooine and get rescued by two local boys. That would make me very, 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 very happy. And I think that would tease it enough to be like, oh, we know who those two are. And maybe they introduce themselves by their first names. And of course, it's Biggs and Luke, who would, honestly, if they saw some people getting into some shit, jump in.
Yeah, you see, my problem with that is, especially from what Luke says in A New Hope, where he's like, I want to get out of here to go join the, Imperial Academy and everything. I don't think the rebellion was really that much on his radar until Biggs comes back and talks about it.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. But I'm not talking about this as, oh, he's going to help the rebellion. I'm talking about this with his natural sense of shit is going wrong and I can help fix it, which we see him do, and he actually started doing when he was a little kid.
But yes, so Tatooine, that is definitely something that has to happen. And I agree with you. Primarily, I want it to happen not because of Skywalker feelings, but because I want to see Kanan and Obi-Wan together.
That would be awesome.
I want to see Kanan, face to face with another Jedi, because obviously being a Jedi is really important. I know it sounds stupid to say, being a Jedi is important to a Jedi. But Ahsoka does not identify with being a Jedi anymore. She has left the Jedi Order behind. But Kanan, as much as he's changed, as much as he does not follow everything from the Jedi Order, he does still identify as being a Jedi. He is still very much a Jedi, and Obi-Wan is kind of like this heroic figure, and he is also the last Jedi that he saw anything from, because Obi-Wan was sending out this distress signal, basically, or a warning signal. I don't know what you'd really call it, but obviously we've seen him watch it since then, just kind of wondering what has happened to Obi-Wan, what has happened to all of the other Jedi. So I really want that moment of him, seeing Obi-Wan and being like, oh my god, there's still another Jedi.
Well, there's that.
There is actually a line in A New Dawn where he's thinking about Obi-Wan, about what happened to him, and he said, Obi-Wan must be dead because I can't see him hiding away on some backwater planet.
Ouch!
And it's like, oh, Kanan.
Yeah, well, I want to see the reunion with Obi-Wan just because it'll be this person that Kanan was hero worshipping for so long, especially since he was so young when the Clone Wars ended. It's, oh my god, this person that I was, so sure was the best Jedi ever, and now I get to meet him after so many years of thinking he was dead, so...
Yeah, I think that's going to be... that'll be really interesting. And of course, they'll probably fight together to face Darth Maul, and, Luke will never have a clue what actually happened not far from his home. Yeah. But I will say, if they go to Tatooine and we don't see Luke, I will scream bloody murder because that is just wrong.
And now you're making me hurt, because I am realizing that if Kanan and Obi-Wan are fighting Darth Maul on Tatooine, Obi-Wan is going to be having so many bad flashbacks.
No, that's very true.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. More pain, more pain.
I told you, Star Wars is pain.
Yes, it is.
Just aside from going to Tatooine, I would like to see more appearances from, Leia and Wedge. These characters that they've now kind of established are in the rebellion, and we're really starting to get a more cohesive version of the rebellion. And at some point, we're going to have to see Mon Mothma, I think. I don't know, when, because she's she and Bail are kind of like the heads. Maybe they're kind of holding back on her because she's going to be in Rogue One. So that's the only thing I can think of that,
I want to see Alderaan.
Oh,
yeah.
I actually, now that you've mentioned it, Alderaan's always been like this, because it was destroyed in the first movie, it's like, oh my god, I want to go to Alderaan. I want to see more than just like the little tiny bit that we saw at the end of Revenge of the Sith. I would like to be on Alderaan and have the characters have to do something there. I don't know what.
Well, since we've already met Bail and Leia both, they could wind up there.
Yeah, though they do seem Leia and Bail really try to keep Alderaan out of the rebellion. They just try to keep that completely separate, which I guess that Leia and Bail were kind of doing the whole rebellion thing off of Alderaan, basically doing their senatorial duties and kind of working as double agents for the rebellion. Meanwhile, Brea was staying on Alderaan, keeping the peace there, and doing her hardest to, keep the Alderaanian people out of it. But I don't know.
Which would make it even more interesting if the rebels did wind up there, because it's like, no, wait, we don't want you guys here. Why are you here? Get off the planet.
So that's what Leia is saying to Ezra, right?
Go away. Go away. I can totally see that. Maybe that's season 4.
I'm just trying to think if there's any Legends stuff that I think that they should bring in.
Well, they pretty much pulled the Legends
the Trump card.
Yeah.
The Thrawn card, as it were.
Yeah. I know a lot of people, as soon as they heard about Thrawn, wanted there to be Mara Jade, but it's been flat out denied.
Yeah, no.
She's not showing up on Rebels.
She's not in this canon, and
they haven't said they haven't said she's not in this canon. They said she's not going to be on Rebels.
Yeah, I don't want teenage Mara Jade anyways.
Yeah, no, I don't want her to be in this canon because there's enough wank with her in Legends. We do not need the epic amounts of wank that would ensue if she were in this canon.
Roan, you laugh. No, it's very true.
No. I have no doubt. I absolutely believe. I'm just laughing because it's wank that I was not involved in ever.
I mean, this. If they were to bring her into this canon, it would be wank on top of wank. It would be double wank. Wank times 2.
No, it would be more like wank squared.
Yeah.
Exponential wank.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So does anybody have any final thoughts on Star Wars Rebels, other than, if you haven't watched it, why haven't you watched it yet?
Well, actually, I wanted to talk about the way this season is going in Thrawn, because I find the fact that they're doing a lot of episodes based on around the individual characters and their plots that relate to the Empire. I feel like a lot of that is Thrawn behind the scenes sort of testing them, and so that's how we get Sabine going into the Academy. You get all of these various different things focused on the different characters because there's Thrawn behind it and he wants to see where their limits are.
So he's playing a long game.
They did kind of touch on that in Hera's Heroes. That it was
because that was obviously they interacted directly.
Yeah,
Oh, this is going to be such a good season.
Yeah, no, each one of them is going to have some sort of way that Thrawn's going to be testing them, so that way he can try and get them, because, yeah, he can do stuff off of art, but he needs to, you know...
I'm trying to remember what he said. It's like, to know your enemy, you can't just know their battle tactics, you have to know their history. And so, yeah, I definitely agree with you. I could definitely see Thrawn doing that.
They're on his radar now, so he's definitely paying attention to them. Which
of course can bring up some like super interesting things of like digging into the backgrounds of these characters, where I do think a lot of them, like, we can get stuff from like the comics and from the books that have come out, but there is some more stuff that can be revealed like on the show itself. There's many years for Ezra. There's Kanan being, a drunken, shift
man whore.
I wasn't going to put it like that, but yes.
Let's not paint it fine. That's what he was.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And Sabine, like, more information about her being in the Imperial Academy. There's a lot of places that they can go to really deepen these characters, and I would definitely like to see Thrawn trying to, exploit that kind of stuff. And of course, like, the thing that I really need is I need Rex to be able to survive to be that dude in Return of the Jedi.
Right. I mean, I guess basically the only thing I would say is I know I put off watching it because I was like, oh God, a Star Wars kids show, whatever. But it was really watching other fans talk about it that had me curious. And Luthe, you were one of them talking about it. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll try it. And the first episode absolutely hooked me.
For a kid show, it's a very sophisticated show. It's, there's continuity, people die.
Well, just remember, Clone Wars was technically a kid's show, and, well, it was not a kid's show.
Yeah.
No, it was an indictment of the Jedi Order, basically. So that's all I'd say is if you've been putting it off because it's a kid's show, watch it.
Yes, definitely watch it. This is such a good show. It really, it bridges the gap between the prequels and A New Hope and kind of starts to flesh things out. So, yeah, watch it. Just, go ahead and do it. So, I'd just like to thank everybody for participating in this roundtable. And come the end of Season 3, we'll probably be having some sort of conversation about Rebels again.
I'll be screaming in pain or screaming in joy, one of the two.
I crashed my car into the bridge. I don't care. I love it. I don't care.
This is MC, and I have a trio of Rebels fan vids to recommend this month. First is dedicated to my favorite couple, Kanan and Hera. Edited by Hannah J. Kirkby, this video is set to Stand By You by Rachel Patton. It captures the emotional bond between Kanan and Hera. While demonstrating their deep, unbreakable bond, it doesn't drift too far into soporific romance. Very fitting for these two. The second is Ezra Will Be Somebody by Dragon Rebel Rose. Set to Be Somebody by Thousand Foot Crutch. It's a beautifully cut chronicle of Ezra's journey to being a Padawan. The final video is Wait For It by SWR Rebels Rule. Set to the song from the musical Hamilton, it is an ensemble piece giving time to each and every character from the show. It is gorgeous and stirring, matching lyrics and visuals beautifully.
As you might imagine from our roundtable discussion, there is a fair bit of Rebels fic that features the relationship between Kanan Jarrus and Hera Syndulla, or Kinera. What I have today isn't so much a single fic rec, although I will mention one in particular, as it is a series rec. Shannon Phillips' series, A Little Less Attitude and a Little More Altitude, from one of the first lines we hear Kanan say to Hera, is an enormous, glorious series of currently 21 individual fics, spanning 121,000 words, that covers Kanan and Hera's relationship from the early days through the current series timeframe. I haven't had a chance to read all of it yet, but based on what I have read, I feel entirely comfortable reckoning the entire series to you. The standout fic for me, and probably an excellent place to start, is the fic Fade to Black. Fade to Black is a series of vignettes, each set after one of the episodes in Season 1. They range from unrepentantly smutty to emotional to both at the same time. If you're watching the series for the first time, I highly recommend pausing between episodes and reading each chapter as you go. Shannon Phillips absolutely gets Kanan and Hera's relationship. She gets that it's between two grown-ups who, for better or worse, are both a little damaged, but still devoted to each other and their little found family. If you're interested at all in seeing a more adult look, in all senses of the word, at their relationship, check out A Little Less Attitude and A Little More Altitude.
But I'm a 90s bitch. I love it. I love it.
Well, that about wraps it up for this month's episode of the Trash Compactor podcast. We'd like to thank Luthe, who was with us on our Rebels Roundtable, and April, who was with us on our Trash Compactor Reacts segment. We did get some email this month, and we'll get to that in a second. But besides email, we got something that I had no expectation that we would get ever as a podcast. We got fan art.
Yay!
That was absolutely amazing. Inspired by our Rare Pairs episode last month, Senpaiko, who sent us questions last month, I love this woman, drew some Luke and Biggs fan art, which we will link to. We've already reblogged it. We'll probably reblog it again because it's absolutely amazing. And I screamed when I saw it. I really did. It broke my heart in the best possible way. So yeah, I feel like we've arrived. We got fan art.
Yeah. And Senpaiko, we can answer more questions about, people, fucking in various places as long as you keep drawing for us.
So yes, please do. If you want to send us more questions and draw us more fan art, we'll try to keep inspiring you. That was awesome. That was totally unexpected.
Yeah.
We also got email from Vaderito, who says, "Hi all, I'm a fellow podcaster who loves your show. I just wish you'd do it more often, like weekly or at least bi-weekly. It's a long wait. I'm happy to see that fans of Rey and Kylo are branching into podcasting. Moreover, our fandom really makes intelligent ones. I've learned so much from yours. For example, the latest one about shipping discussed Lucasfilm's attitude towards slash fiction in the 80s. That's just terrible, but those were different times. Take care and keep up the good work, counting the days until the November 7th podcast." We thought about this. When we first started, we really thought that we were going to do more often than just every month.
Yeah. It takes a lot of work to put the podcast together, especially, we do all of the editing and we do the transcription.
Yeah, it's pretty much just me and you.
Yeah. Yeah. Until we get some more people helping us out doing that sort of thing, I think we're going to have to keep things the way it is. Though it's possible we might come out with things that are maybe not quite the size of the monthly episode. We can do a little light episode. We are going to actually be starting to do something like that in December because when Rogue One premieres, we are going to be doing a special Reacts episode where it is just us reacting to Rogue One. So it's possible, especially as we're gearing up towards episode 8, we might do more reacts just separate of the main episode. So the answer to the question is yes and no.
Yeah.
Yeah, no to the big episodes, but we might do smaller things in between.
Yeah, I mean, we really talked about it when we first started, and we wanted to try to do it bi-monthly, but it has turned out to be a little more work than we expected.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. I love it. But yeah, so thanks for emailing us.
Thank you. So we have one final letter this month that just came in right now. This is from Edgy Toast. Continuing with the question from the most recent episode, I have to ask, what do you think is the best/hottest Star Wars vehicle to have sex in and why? Bonus, what vehicle you guys think would be the worst? The Raylo Trash in me wants to ask you guys if you think it has a chance of becoming canon or if you think they'll end up being related. I also want to add that Rowan's laugh gives me life. Gives me life, too. Love your podcast, by the way, and I look forward to the next one. P.S. You all are slowly converting me into shipping more rare pairs.
Yay!
I love hero/villain ships, and I am seriously considering Finn/Kylo. Ooh,
Yay!
yes, more Finn
That's awesome.
Kylo.
Join us in Rare Pair Hell.
Okay, so there's a couple of questions here. I think first the Raylo question.
Yeah.
I have no clue.
Yeah.
I have no freaking clue.
And honestly, I don't think that's an either or choice. I don't think it's either it's canon or they're related. I think it...
Yeah.
I mean, yes, this is Star Wars, so it's probably not it becomes canon and they're related. But I think it's possible that it might not be canon and they could still not be related.
Yeah.
I am neutral on that point. I have so many ships that will never ever be canon. Canonicity is like utterly irrelevant to me in ships at this point.
Yeah. I think with Star Wars, I mean, they take so many turns that it's basically impossible to know what's going to happen unless you're watching the prequels, in which case you know what's going to happen.
Oh, wait. You know what? I lied. I totally do have a ship that I want to see become canon.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Luke and Sana. That needs to be canon. Okay, I'm done.
And the first question, the vehicle question, what would be the best and what would be the worst?
Oh, God. I mean, we talked about X-Wings already.
We talked about X-Wings, and X-Wings is a pretty good one.
We have to define what good is. Like, is good you have tons of room and there's plenty of space to do whatever you want to do? Or is good like, holy shit, that would be really hot? Or what?
I think it's got to be a mix. Because, I mean, for me, I would say, like, any ship that is, like, bigger than an X-Wing is probably going to be low on the hot scale.
Because you're not crowded together.
Yeah, because then it's just like, okay, you're in a room. I do think the worst vehicle would probably be a speeder bike.
I don't know. That has possibilities.
I think just logistically, it just seems awkward.
I think we have to rule out X-Wing because obviously X-Wing is probably the top of the hotness scale.
Yeah. Land speeder is a good one.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Y'all know why I think that one's hot. It totally happened. Why haven't I written that in fic yet? I really need...
I don't
because
know.
It's like, it's a car, and they're teenagers, and so they totally fucked it.
Yeah. I've totally written Lugosi in a land speeder before.
So that might be the other best. Although in terms of like actual ships and not like vehicles, although the question was vehicles, I think actually a TIE fighter might be a close second because you kind of have the same... closeness factor in an X-Wing.
Yeah.
You have the same closeness factor, but you've got a little more room. And plus, if you're the rebellion, you're like fucking in the other side's vehicle, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah. Millennium Falcon gets cool points just because it's the Millennium fucking Falcon.
That's true. Even though it's like, a room. But still, yes.
Yeah, even though it's a room.
It's the Falcon.
It is like the coolest ship in the universe, and also Kylo Ren was conceived on that thing.
Yes, he was. And that is canon. The worst, you know what? I think the worst would probably be, I have two options. It's either going to be Jabba's sail barge.
Oh, yeah.
That sucks. Or it would be a Jawa's transport.
Oh, yeah.
Both would just no.
Do you know what might not be actually bad in terms of, somewhere good to have sex? A pod racer.
But that's worse than a speeder bike. How would you even...
Well, we only ever saw the inside of Anakin's, so...
That's true. But not while racing, because, that's a way to die.
Well, obviously not while racing. Didn't we already establish that in the last episode? I will be making a t-shirt of Don't Fucking Fly, and we'll have the link to that.
Oh my God. I think, did we answer everything?
Yeah, I think we did.
All right. Well, thank you, Edgy Toast. I have to admit the thing about my laugh, made me laugh and also made my morning, so... Thank you. I'm glad you like it because I can't seem to stop.
Yeah, there's so many times when I'm transcribing and I've just got to put in Roane laughs.
I'm a giggler. I can't help it. I've always been easy.
And for anybody else who wants to email us or, contact us in any way, you can drop us a line on Tumblr at thetrashcompactorpodcast.tumblr.com. You can contact us on Twitter at SWTrashPodcast. go to our website at trashcompactorpodcast.com, or there's email, thetrashcompactorpodcast@gmail.com.
Well, that wraps up this episode. Come back next month where we're going to talk about the holiday special.
Dun, dun, dun!
Which I, for one, have never seen.
I have.
So I'm going to be watching this for this the things I do for this podcast. So yeah, you could hear us bemoan or celebrate Life Day next month. Thanks.
Bye.
You go out